Hey, shalom, shalom, mishpacha. Welcome to another edition of Ray Bash's Ramblings. I'm your host, Rabbi Yehuda ben Shmuel, and today I'm going to talk to you about Purim and the pagan names of Persia, which I'm going to be reading from a blog that I just recently wrote by that same title. And it says, just as many who come to Messianic and Netzari faith take on new names to reflect one's newfound faith, similarly, when a conquering nation would submit a nation, and the people of that vassal state would take on new names to reflect that the people were under new management, so to speak. Also, this was done to symbolize the defeat of the defeated nation's god or gods, because back in the day, most names reflected the religion of that particular nation. For example, the Hebrew nation, Daniel, Dan-El, means God is my judge, or Elijah, Eliyahu, means Yahweh is my God. It was not uncommon for a conquering nation to give new names to the people they captured, for Daniel and the three Hebrew children were all given pagan names, and it is by those names which we know the three Hebrew young men as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. But did you know that their Hebrew names were Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah? Daniel was given the name Belteshazzar, all this according to Daniel 1:7. So, did you know that Esther, the heroine of Purim, is not a Hebrew name? No, it's actually a derivative of the name of the pagan goddess Ishtar. Her real name was Hadassah. Now, Hadassah means myrtle tree, and the myrtle branches are used during Sukkot in the lulav and etrog that we wave before Hashem. And each element of the lulav and etrog represents a part of the human body and represents a particular type of person. So the myrtle leaves look like eyes, and therefore it represents eyes. And the Hadass leaf is also a very aromatic leaf, and it represents people who has good deeds. And Hadassah, Esther, had eyes, had the eyes of the king, but she also had eyes to see trouble around her and wisely take action by fasting. And her good deed was risking her life to approach the king without being summoned. What greater deed is there than self-sacrifice, according to John 15:13? No greater love has anyone than this, that they lay down their life for their friends. And that's exactly what Yeshua did, and we see Hadassah, Esther, did the same thing for her people. Now, Ishtar, from where we get the name Esther, was the goddess of fertility, love, and war. And Esther won the love of King Ahasuerus and was the catalyst that brought war to the kingdom, saving the Persian Jews and allowing the Jewish people to survive and continue the perpetuation of their various lines, as well as defeating Haman and bringing his line to an end. Esther's action fulfilled the meaning of her pagan name. Now, names, whether pagan or Hebraic, have prophetic meaning in a person's life, and their name will shape their life. For example, Nabal was foolish and crass enough to snub David when he was on the run from King Saul, and it cost Nabal his life, for indeed his name meant folly, according to 1 Samuel 25:25. Solomon means son of peace, and he was the peace child that brought back equilibrium between God and David, as well as there was peace and prosperity all throughout Solomon's reign. Ahasuerus, or Xerxes, as we know him by some translations, he's the king of the story. It means lion king, which shows that he was seen as a lion by everyone else, and showed that he was a mighty conquering king not to be trifled with. And we see what happened when Haman tried to seduce Queen Esther right under the king's nose. Actually, he wasn't trying to seduce the queen. He was actually begging for mercy, and in the king's anger, he saw Haman, laying over Esther while he was begging for mercy, and he took it as seduction. And so what happened? He was hung, according to Esther 7. Verses 9 through 10. And a lion, when attacking his prey to kill him, immediately goes for the neck. Interesting. So Ahasuerus surely did live up to his name. Now Haman was a descendant of Esau and Amalek, enemies of Israel, and Israel was commanded to wipe out Amalek and his descendants, but they failed to do so, and thus the Jewish people reaped the consequences of their disobedience in the book of Esther, according to Deuteronomy 25:19. For Haman, an Amalekite, attempted to wipe out Israel. Haman means magnificent, and indeed Haman was very vain and conceited and thought himself to be magnificent, so magnificent in fact that everybody should bow down and recognize his magnificence. His name also means noisy tumult, and indeed he was flapping his lips and causing trouble wherever he went. And traditionally, during the reading of the book of Esther during Purim, we make noise we make a noisy tumult with our groggers, our noisemakers, in order to drown out the name of Haman. Now Mordecai was named after the god Marduk, and he was the god of war and order. Haman, meaning noisy tumult, is symbolic of chaos, and Mordecai / Marduk is all about order, and henceforth the clash between the two, Haman and Mordecai. Also, Mordecai / Marduk, meaning the god of war, Mordecai was a type of warrior, and warriors just don't bow down to somebody because they think they're magnificent. The warrior will only bow to a superior, and Haman was anything but. So Mordecai only bowed to the God of Israel, for he is supreme and worthy of a warrior's worship and allegiance. In Esther Rabbah 7:8 it says, Haman said to the couriers, Tell Mordecai his ancestors bowed to my ancestors, for it says, Joseph and Rachel bowed down to Esau. Mordecai replied, but Benjamin wasn't born. Mordecai was a descendant of Benjamin, who was prophetically represented by the wolf, which is the warrior of the woods. And seeing as when Joseph and Rachel bowed before Esau, Benjamin wasn't born yet, and so Mordecai's descendants never bowed to Esau or his line, and he wasn't about to start. So you see, even when one is conquered, one is not defeated. In order to attempt to wipe out Hebrew life, religion, and culture, the Persians gave the Jews pagan names. Yet, that was their downfall because they failed to see the prophetic significance in a name. By giving Hadassah the name Esther and Mordecai the name Marduk, the Persians were actually christening them warlords of the Hebrew people. God truly does work everything out to the good, according to Romans 8:28. Chag Sameach Purim! Thanks for watching. Shalom and Shavua Tov. Bye-bye, everybody.